And welcome back to the Skating Penguin Network, everyone. It is Robbie, joined once again by Snail on this Monday, the last day of the month of September in 2024. Every day is one day closer to hockey season officially getting underway. We are roughly 10 days out now, so the countdown is really on. And a busy week for the Penguins. But before we jump into all the happenings, Snail, how are you doing out there in the Pacific?
It's awesome out here, man. It was my birthday over the weekend. It was actually my birthday yesterday. I turned 33, and had a bonfire last night. And my childhood buddy and I put down just about an entire bottle of whiskey. So
Nice.
I am super hungover today. I did not go to work today. I did that on purpose. I didn't just bail. Yeah, had a slow morning. Already had some leftovers for breakfast, and dude, also, did your phone get affected by the nationwide um like cell phone outage?
It sounds like it was Verizon. I'm on AT&T,
Oh, your
so
AT&T. Oh, it was just
yep.
Verizon.
That's what it said. Verizon. The article I said it was Verizon that made the announcement, so I
Okay.
assumed it was just Verizon. So no, my phone, as far as I know, I don't get many calls throughout the day, but I had no issues with sending texts or doing anything else. So I think mine was up and running.
I woke up. I was jolted awake at about 6 a.m. this morning. My body probably just my
Oh,
nervous
geez.
system kicking in from
Yeah,
just the whiskey leaving my
yeah.
body. And I went to check my phone, and it just said SOS at the top. And I didn't have to work today, but I had to make some work phone calls for the week today that I had
Yep,
scheduled. I couldn't get a hold of
yep.
anybody. I was scrambling all over the internet trying to figure out how to do it. I updated my phone, which I've been pushing off since 2000 or since 2022. So yeah, I woke up just kind of frazzled today, but yeah, like you said, it's a couple reasons to look forward to this coming week. Yeah, we're officially entering October, which, puck drop is about a week away once that
Yep.
happens. And then Monday Night Football tonight. I saw your Steelers lost there. The
They did.
Seahawks
Yep.
play Monday Night Football against the Lions and have about four key people on D missing. So
Oh, that's
um,
fun.
yeah, it'll be interesting. So yeah, it's kind of a weird day, kind of a weird Monday for me to be honest, but I'm excited to be here. And uh, dude, Penguins rolling in the preseason as well. Did you see Malkin and Sid just making light
Yeah.
work?
Yeah. Yeah. So oddly enough, Snell mentioned that his birthday was yesterday. Mine is actually today, as we record
Oh,
this.
what? That's
As we record
crazy.
this episode, I am, yes. September 30th is my birthday. Um,
Wow. Happy birthday,
yeah.
man.
Thank you. I did
How
not
old are
realize
you?
yours was. I'm 35.
35. Okay, so you're only
Yep.
2 years older than me
Yeah.
officially.
Yeah.
You
I did
were
not
one
realize
year
that yours
older
was
than me. You were 1 year older than me for a day.
about 24 hours. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. I'm basically a year and 364 days older than you.
Yeah, that's
Yeah. So
crazy.
that is crazy. I didn't realize your birthday was yesterday. So happy birthday to both of us. Um,
Yeah,
so for
birthday
you, the
pod.
Penguins, unfortunately, our birthdays never fall in hockey season.
I know.
It's always super disappointing. There was the 2020 COVID year where there was a chance that I believe Game 7 of that final could have been played on September 30th, and I was really hoping it went 7 games because I wanted them to play on my birthday because I never get normal regular season hockey on my birthday. I get baseball, I get football, but I never get hockey. But yeah, so but for your birthday, like we said last night, Penguins were in Sudbury, Canada, and a very clinical showing. Everything in the preseason and training camp you take with a grain of salt, but
Yeah.
Malkin hat trick, Crosby big performance. I mean, for the first time seeing those guys on the ice in a competitive situation this summer or this fall heading into the season, I mean, you have to like what you saw. I mean, overall, yeah, they get the win, which yeah, that doesn't matter as much. You're looking more for individual performances. Crosby and Malkin, if that's an indication of the season, I think those guys are going to put up some pretty good numbers. Um, Especially if the power play looks like it did last night.
Yeah, absolutely. Those guys are, I mean, Malkin and Sid have been doing it for so long. I don't really want to, dude, with the way that this preseason has been going, They're the last people I wanted to see on the ice. Just save it for the final preseason game of the preseason, and then let them off the leash game one. Have you been seeing these injuries to key players that's happening all over the league?
Yeah, so I mean, we've lost Drew Doughty for a couple months. It sounds like Evander Kane. Now he was hurt before, but he's out for
Dude,
a
Patrick
couple months.
Laine got his
Patrick
knee
Laine
obliterated.
is, yeah, he had a very nasty um, collision uh, on the ice. So yeah,
We have a question about that actually, so we'll
yeah, we
go into
do.
that one
Yeah,
more. But I saw who else? Matthews had an apparent injury, but I don't think he's going to miss any time. I
Nylander had
saw
that weird in situation with Nick Robertson that he hit his head on an opponent. Then
Yer,
there was another guy in that Montreal game that had a knee on knee hit too. That was, I can't remember who it was though, but he's banged up as
it
well.
was Reinbacher.
Okay, yeah.
They're a big
So
prospect for the Habs.
yeah, so I mean, yeah, you don't want, obviously don't want Malkin and Crosby going into um, the season completely rusty. You need to get them some ice time, but
True.
maybe give them one more game and then just wrap them up. And because it's a busy week, the Penguins, so they do play this evening, but it's a makeup from Saturday
Oh
because they
yeah,
could not get to Detroit on time.
airplane was day to
Um,
day.
Airplane was, yeah, the airplane was day to day. It wasn't weather. The airplane was day to day. So they were playing tonight, and then they have three more games. Then one on Tuesday, and then Thursday, Friday. They have a very busy week here. So yeah, maybe give them one more playoff game. Probably do it on home ice, either tomorrow night or Friday, and then just put them away for the rest of the preseason. There's no point in risking too much there because we really don't need either of those guys going down in games that don't matter. Not at all, but definitely not a game. Definitely not in a game that has no implications on the rest of the season. We don't need anything like
No,
that.
no, absolutely not.
Yeah.
So yeah, but speaking of injuries, we kind of that was kind of the preseason update. And speaking of injuries, there is an injured Penguin who has yet to touch the ice.
Yeah.
And that would be what, two-time Norris winning defenseman Erik Karlsson.
Yes. He has been out. He is not. He's been on the ice as an
Oh,
individual.
he
But
has.
now, yeah, early in his injury, but now he's no longer on um, the ice at all. He has not been skating. I believe he's doing off the ice work, but it's kind of now it's a big question mark as the Penguins enter this final stretch of the preseason here. And Brian pretty much asked in the mailbag section or the questions. We'll get it done here since we're talking about it now. What's the concern level for Erik Karlsson right now?
It's it with Erik Karlsson specifically. If he's not skating and partaking in preseason like camp type stuff because of his injury history, it's a little bit more elevated than it would normally. They've been pretty, the Penguins are pretty tight-lipped about like injury stuff. The league is pretty tight-lipped, but some teams
Mm-hmm.
less than others. And Mike Sullivan's had a number of quotes regarding this, and he's keeping it pretty close to is it close to the vest or close to the chest? What's the saying?
Chest,
Close to the chest.
chest,
Okay. Yeah, well, he's doing that.
chest. Yeah,
He's doing that. So I'm a little concerned, Robbie. I mean, dude, this guy has had like reconstructive surgery, I think on his like Achilles or something like that a few like years back when he was when the Penguins and the Sens went game 7. I think after that year, I think his ankle was like obliterated. He was playing on one leg apparently. And yeah, I don't know. He's missed significant time over his career. You just worry about
yeah.
a guy like Karlsson. What's your level of concern? Are you having to um are you thinking about it at all, or have you had to change your undies at any point? Like, how concerned are you?
I wouldn't say I'm that like to that level, but I mean, you have to start at least wondering what's going on. He went from being out of the starting training camp to doing individual workouts on the ice to regressing to the point where he's not skating, and they are being extremely about as vague as you can be,
Mm-hmm.
even by NHL standards, on an injury. And he's now no longer skating, off ice workouts being evaluated. all those catch-all terms for whatever they mean. But I don't know how you're not at least a little bit like at least a little concerned about what his status is. At this point, I don't feel good about him starting the season healthy. At this point, though, I don't want them pushing him out at 80 or 90% come October 9th. I'd rather at this point wait till he is 100% healthy and is ready to go. I mean, if he's going to miss any games, you'd rather have him miss games in October than April, especially for a team like the Penguins that we expect to be battling for a playoff spot. So I think that there's some concern, but if as long as they're doing the due diligence and they aren't rushing him back, which it certainly seems like they aren't, I'm okay with them not pushing him out there at 80, 90%, make sure he's 100% healthy. But if this drags on into late October, November, then I mean, yeah, then I think the concern ratchets up every week that goes by where we get no solid update, and doesn't seem like to make any progress. So right now, yeah, some general concern, but you hope that he's making progress and they're handling it with due diligence. But as the weeks go on and there's no noted progress, then I think the concern would escalate as that goes along.
Kyle Dubas is just putting his sack in the wheelbarrow, and he is going to put him on LTIR and pull a Patty Kane move like the Blackhawks.
I mean, I don't think. I mean, yeah, that would obviously take a serious injury, and I don't know. Again, we have no idea. We have no general idea what the issue exactly is. So
they haven't said lower body or upper body in any of that, have they?
I don't think so. If they did, it was really early. Yeah. So it's more or less just hold your breath and hope we get good news sooner rather than later.
Absolutely. The last thing you want is with this Karlsson, like the way that he kind of had a down season last year, the power play sucked. That was Dubas's big move. He made big splash as the GM of the Penguins. The last thing you need is, you bring in his former coach that he won the Norris under to run the power play. Big things expected from Karlsson this year. So the last thing you want is for him to get off to, I don't care if he gets off to a slow start, but you want him back no matter what, but you see this every year. The guys who miss the beginning of the season, sometimes they just have a hard time catching up to speed, and then they're behind the whole season. So Karlsson's a pro, though, and he's an elite talent. I have faith that this, if it's not serious, he'll get back to he'll be right there at the beginning of the season, probably looking good. But it is worrisome altogether. It is pretty worrisome.
Yeah. I agree with that assessment of where we're kind of at right now with Erik Karlsson. And some transaction news here real quick before we jump into the mailbag. Sergei Murashov, the goaltender, was sent down to Wilkes-Barre, so it looks like that's where he's going to at least start. They just opened camp, so he'll get a look down there first. I believe with the up with the big club still is obviously Tristan Jarry and Alex Nedeljkovic, Joel Blomqvist, and I can't remember the other goaltender's name, Nilsson or Carlson or something like that.
Philip Larson.
Larson. Yeah, Philip Larson is still up there as well. So busy week coming for these goaltenders with all these games. Would have liked to see Murashov maybe get a look, but neither here nor there at this point. We are headed to a 4-goalie rotation as we get toward the tail end of camp here. So that's kind of where everything stands with that. Camp still has around 50 players, and we will get more cuts here in the next 10 days as we ramp up to the start of the season for the Penguins, at least October 9th. The New York Rangers will be in town. That'll be our first game recap of the year, first game of the year. So countdown is about to enter single digits. So get hype because it's coming quick.
Who would you put your money on is going to be the next cut from the Penguins roster? Do you think they utilize waivers or anything like that? And if so, who do you have? Who's on your chopping block?
Sam Poulin's on the chopping block. I mean, you have that entire. I mean, I think Ryan Shea is probably on the topping block on the defensive side. You have just a logjam at all these positions. I think a lot's going to be determined by how these final preseason games play out. Who shines, who steps up, who makes an impression. I think we have a rough idea of who to expect, but there's going to be some bottom six, bottom pairing, 13th forward, 7th defenseman spots that are going to be open. And they're going to try to avoid having to use waivers, but there's some of these guys that's going to be unavoidable. They will be have to be sent down and have to go through waivers. So fingers crossed they all get through, but there might be some guys that Kyle Dubas does not have a problem with losing, and others he's going to be holding his breath about.
Can you put Ryan Graves on waivers?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
Unfortunately.
Be interesting if you could.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's get to some questions then. We got Brian Heavy Bag and a question at the end from Andreas Castle. The first question Brian asks, and he wants you to play school teacher here, Robbie. What grade are you giving Dubas for his off-season moves, seeing how the new players are playing in camp and the lines that are starting to develop?
So I think, again, this is going to be an incomplete grade until we see how any of these guys produce when it really matters. I think most of the guys he's brought in are going to make the roster, or at least being highly competitive for a roster spot. Cody Glass has been impressive in camp. Kevin Hayes has tallied a couple goals. Blake Lizotte has looked good. It's all going to be how he managed this roster, what impact these guys have, and it's going to be incomplete until further down the line. But for right now, I'm going to say B minus. But that could obviously fluctuate up or down depending on how the season goes along here. Anthony Beauvillier has gotten a look on the top line with Crosby.
I thought he looked good.
Yeah,
I saw some clips of that. I thought he looked good.
He's actually been pretty solid with Crosby and Russ. So I think he'll get a look on that top line. I'm not saying he'll get it opening night, because I still think that O'Connor, given what we saw at the end of last season, will get that nod there.
Sullivan's been speaking very highly of O'Connor.
Sullivan spoke very high of O'Connor, especially today. Basically said that he's at the same age now that Brian Rust was when Brian Rust really took that next step. Yeah, when he popped off and really became the goal scorer, point man that we see now. Brian Rust was kind of at the point where you wondered how long he was going to remain in Pittsburgh, kind of entering a contract type season. And that's kind of the same situation that Drew O'Connor's in. So it'll be really interesting to see how Connor responds this season. Does he take that step like Russ did? Because if he does, man, that solves a lot of problems going forward for the rest of Crosby's time here. So
I've always thought Sid worked the best when he had a power forward on his wing, at least one power forward. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Iginla didn't last very long, but I liked when Iginla and Sid played together. I like Billy Guerin on Sid's line. Kunitz is kind of a power forward. He was kind of a jack of all trades, but Hornquist played well with Sid. Funny enough, Beauvillier is wearing Hornquist's old number. But Drew O'Connor, if he can pop this year, if he can kind of take another step and become like an NHL caliber power forward that can drive the net and do those go to those dirty areas and bang in some greasier goals, and maybe I want to see him shoot a little bit more. But yeah, it's a lot to ask, but if we can see flashes of that more this year, that's all the better. I think he's on a pretty friendly contract too.
Yeah. There's nothing scary about the contract. But again, next year could very well be up for a big payday if he performs, which I'd love to see. If he is up for a big payday, that means he had a good season, and that's what we want to see out of a guy like Drew O'Connor.
Would you consider Drew O'Connor kind of like a power forward?
Yeah, he's a little bit bigger. He's not. I don't know if true power forward. He's obviously not like a Hornquist, but he's definitely a bigger frame. Can skate really well. Has a good shot. But yeah, he definitely somebody that compared to Brian Ross, he's definitely a bigger body that can be thrown around and hopefully knows how to use it rather than shy away from contact. Just because you have a big body doesn't mean you know how to use it.
Ryan Graves.
All right, sticking with Brian here. Should Noel Achari earn his spot? Do you see value with him being in the lineup given the revamped bottom six, or would you rather his spot be filled by someone else? He was mostly injured last season, so we really didn't get to see how he'd fit as a bottom six with the Penguins.
Achari absolutely has to earn his spot. After missing a lot of last season, I don't care what he's done in other markets or how loved he was in like Boston or Florida or whatever. And I think he played for Toronto for just a cup of coffee. And was it St. Louis as well? I think he was in St. Louis too. And
Yeah.
yeah, like he's been an effective bottom six guy before, but I mean, this is what you need in camp, especially with where the Penguins are at. You need a healthy competition between veterans and youth. And I've heard he's not really, from what I've read about Achari, he has not looked very good so far in camp, preseason. He's looked sluggish out there. I've seen the word burnt. And that's not a good sign for a guy like Achari because he's definitely someone I could see. He's not, signed to a massive ticket or anything like that. He's definitely someone that I could see being put on waivers. And I feel like if the Penguins put a guy like Achari on waivers, he's probably getting snatched up. Teams could always use an extra bottom six guy. I think the style of play he plays, I could see a team in the West being keen on a guy like him. A Ducks team that's rebuilding. The Colorado Avalanche always seem to find these depth guys that just with the way that they play and the attitude, they can kind of get more out of them. So it's not signed, sealed, and delivered. He's going to be on waivers, but I do believe he certainly needs to earn his spot and outplay some of these younger guys. And two, yeah, I think that his spot, his position he's expendable at his position right now with just the slog of players the guys that the Penguins have that can be bottom six role guys. So what about you, Robbie? Where are you at on a guy like Achari at this point in his tenure with the Penguins?
I agree with having to earn the roster spot. And again, it goes back to he wasn't really an integral part of this team last year. And they brought in so many new pieces to kind of revamp this bottom six. And the log jam is there. If he isn't good enough, I think that you have to maybe move on. He's too expensive to keep as a 13th skater. Maybe he's a guy you could flip for a late round draft pick if the team is really desperate for some bottom six help. It's frustrating. I know for him and for fans that he was injured last year, blah, blah, blah. There's just so many bodies in this bottom six right now that I think I'd rather give, if it comes at the expense of Cody Glass or Anthony Beauvillier. Again, I don't think Beauvillier is in danger of all of not making the team. I think your guys who I think you have, like I said, you have a pretty solid basis for who's going to make the team. Achari, if I had to guess right now, he probably makes it, but I'm not really sold on it from what I've seen and read about camp. We could learn a lot in this next week with all these games coming up. So certainly could work his way on there, but I probably wouldn't shed a tear if he hit waivers or they look to trade him for basically just a lottery pick in the draft, basically.
Yeah, I don't think he never really had enough time to develop kind of an identity here in Pittsburgh. And I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I think if you got a guy like Achari on like your fourth line, I feel like you need like two other guys that play like Achari, two other just like kind of wrecking balls. You need a guy like a Maroon or Sam Lafferty would have been a great player to pair with a guy like Achari. You need a line that kind of has a similar style of play than him. He's not fit to play a speed game or a fast game. He can hang on to the puck down low.
Mhm.
He can cycle the puck. I don't know. He's a typical fourth liner, but if you put him with like two borderline skill guys, like you kind of did last year, I hated those pairings last year. I think Achari wasn't really set up very well. I think he was playing with that
Yeah.
Nieto most of the year, and Nieto, I don't. Where is Nieto anymore? Anyways, is
Oh
he?
man, I kind of forget about Matt Nieto, to be honest.
I mean, he's been out of sight, out of mind. I don't even know if he ever puts on a Penguin sweater again at this point. I don't think he's like Robidas Island, but I
I
don't
think
know if
he's
he's.
I do think he's on long-term IR or will be placed there when you can start doing that. I
Mm,
do think that he is out long-term, but yeah, kind of a name that I don't think about until you bring it up. It's been so long since he's donned a sweater and been on the ice.
but yeah, Chari's, this like you said too, the bottom six it needs to be revamped, and I think the biggest thing they need is they need an identity for those bottom lines. If they're gonna have a third
Mm-hmm.
line of guys, if they're gonna be a scoring line, they need to be a scoring line, or they need to be a checking line. And that fourth line, I don't think you should be so worried about getting goals from that fourth line. I think you should be putting bigger bodies, penalty killers, guys that can go out and create some energy. And that's where
Yeah.
I'm at. If Achari can't fit either of those, then smell you later. And with that, we will move on to another question from Brian, and another player who's kind of had a little bit of a target on his back. Some rumblings. He says he's seen a user named Penguins Jake on Twitter ask this: realistically, what would it take to get rid of Graves? Too much talent sitting in the AHL because of this nonsense, and I can't say he doesn't have a point.
Yeah, I mean, when I read this question in the mailbag, I know it's I knew we had to put it in here, but it's not an easy question to answer. I think just trying to move on from him is going to be just too expensive in terms of having to give up assets just for somebody to take them. And it's not something Kyle Dubas is clearly willing to do because Kyle Dubas still believes in him. So does the coaching staff. So he's not going anywhere. And Kyle Dubas is not really in the market to move extra assets to get rid of a bad contract, which is unfortunate. The contract should not have been given out to begin with, but that's neither here nor there at this point. That's been over a year. Can't do too much about that anymore. But I think you need to manage his minutes, shelter him as much as possible, and just hope that he can give you any kind of bounce back compared to last season. I mean, literally any good play is an improvement on last season. I just think, unfortunately, Brian, the cost to get rid of him right now is just too much. A buyout doesn't make it. Well, you can't buy out anybody right now anyway. A buyout doesn't make sense. Waivers don't make sense. Nobody's going to take them for free. You're going to have to throw in some sweeteners. And Kyle Dubas, given what we know he's trying to do with this rebuild, isn't in the business of doing that at the moment. So, unfortunately, Ryan Graves is going to be in Pittsburgh. The only thing we can hope for is any kind of improvement on last year. A sheltered role maybe helps that, but until we see it with our own eyes, you just got to kind of hope that the damage isn't too bad. All right. Sticking with Brian here again. Given our history as one of the most injured teams, could that be turned into a positive with all the young talent that's seemingly very close to NHL ready? Kind of could see it being a 2016 situation all over again.
I'm not on that. I'm not with you on that one, Brian. I'm sorry. I just don't think that this is 2016 in the making again. That's super optimistic, and I'm happy that that's where you can be mentally about it.
Yeah, if we had a 26-year-old Crosby and 27-year-old Malkin, I'd think maybe I'd agree with that. But there's definitely, I guess, yeah, opportunities, but I'm not sure that it's quite 2016 again.
I'm not saying because they won the cup, so I'm not. And Jake Gensel was like in 2000. That was 2017. Sheary and Rust. I don't just know if they have any guys that are gonna pop like they did. They went through as you remember, they went through the coaching change from Mike
Mm-hmm.
Johnson to Sully. A lot of things happened. That they had just acquired Phil Kessel. Um, I don't know. I just don't see. I just don't see it happening.
I don't
But
blame you.
uh yeah, the Penguins, there's a bunch of old guys on the Penguins and injuries. Sid's, knock on wood, but like Sid is, he's not invincible out there. He's not on an Iron Man streak. Malkin's, he can be
Nope.
fragile at times. He's just a few seasons removed from having his like knee reconstructed. Carlson's had his injuries.
Yep.
Letang's missed a bunch of games. Just go down the list. Jari's injured at least for a stretch of time every single season. So lots of opportunity for these guys that Dubas is signed. But one thing that separates them from, they had Rust in the system already, and they had picked up Sheary. He was a college free agent that they signed. A lot of these guys are like, this is like their second chance or their last chance type of players, like Cody Glass, Puyi Anthony Beauvillier. Like, these are players that have shown promise in the past, or they were drafted high because of their talent in whatever league or juniors they were in, but they just haven't been able to cut it in probably their projected roles with their respective teams that drafted them, and now they're on their second or third teams, and the Penguins are taking a flyer on them essentially. So that's kind of the young talent that they have. I'd love to see Owen Pickering. I saw Owen Pickering look good in his last preseason game. I would love to see maybe a guy like him come through and play some big minutes. So that's kind of where I'm at with the team. Is if there were injuries, there's definitely some guys who have an opportunity to make a big step and either earn a new contract or have a team earn a new contract with another team with their play in Pittsburgh this year. But I do not see this shaking out like the magical season that 2015-16 was for the Penguins. And Robbie, I assume you agree with me at least a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, just the overall, I mean, the core of the team is so much older now. Nothing against Crosby, because listen, if Crosby wants to go off and carry this team again, I'll enjoy that for as long as I can. I just think realistically, just so many factors are different. But in terms of guys going down and giving young players a chance, that's completely realistic. I mean, it's not going to take much, for that to happen. Especially if one of these young guys really breaks out down in the AHL. McGroarty, Koivunen, other guys who's Ponomareva, blah 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 blah. I'll get it at some point, kid. Assuming he doesn't listen to the podcast, he can't be too offended. But yeah, I mean, at some point, these guys are going to get a shot this year. So yeah, that way, I guess it can be like 2016-esque, but the champion vibes are definitely not 2016-esque, unfortunately.
No. With that, we'll move on from that question. And the last question in this mailbag from Brian is,
no.
Is it not?
No, two more.
Oh,
last one from Brian.
Yeah, last one from Brian.
I thought you meant last one.
I was like, shoot, it's not on here. Brian asks, who's one player from those cups that you randomly think about? Brian's been thinking about Carter Rowney. He just really liked his game.
One name that pops into my head randomly for no reason, Scott Wilson.
Yep.
Wilson scored a couple big goals in those cup runs. I think he did score against Nashville in the Stanley Cup final. In that, I believe, game 1. I could be wrong on that. But yeah, Scott Wilson's one. I remember going back, Mark Streit was on that 2017 team.
Yeah, he was picked up at the deadline.
Mark Streit was picked up. Who was the backup goal? Or there was a third goalie. I can't remember.
Zakov?
Zakov was 2016.
Oh, yeah. 2017.
I can't remember who 2017 was.
Oh, shoot. It was, I know who you're talking about. Let me look it up.
It was, because Murray got hurt before the first game, literally before the first game. Or no, that was 2016.
Wasn't Jari a backup? Oh, Mike Condon.
Was it Jari? It could have been Jari.
It was Mike Condon.
Oh, wow. Wow,
it was
Matt. I know.
Matt Murray, Marc-Andre Fleury, Tristan Jarry, and Mike Condon.
I really don't know if I ever would have guessed that. I could have sat here forever, and I don't know if I would have pulled that name out of thin air. I really don't know that. Mark Streit is a random one, but who mostly of guys that played. Scott Wilson played a heck of a lot of hockey for the Penguins.
Dude, I love Scott Wilson. How did he not find a job anywhere else after Buffalo?
He went to Buffalo for a short minute, and I think he had a stint in the KHL then.
I think he's in overseas still.
Is he still overseas?
I think he is.
Okay, so, he went to Buffalo for a little while. Oh, man, who else on them teams?
Oh, the guy that the big Oscar Sundquist. Remember him?
Stonquist was a part of that. Ron
Yeah, he was on that
Hainsey.
fourth line. Ron Hainsey was a beauty.
Ron Hainsey never made the playoffs his entire life. Comes to Pittsburgh and they go on a cup run. And one of the great all-time great moments for a player. Trevor Daley, another
I think
one.
about Trevor Daley all the
Yeah, I
time.
mean him and Matt Cullen still work for the Penguins, so they haven't gone too far from the mothership. But
Oh God, dude, Scott Wilson is playing this season in Malkin's hometown of Magnitogorsk.
oh wow, seeing
He's
Magneto
he's
scores.
already played 10 games and has 1 goal, 2 assists for 3 points. He's a plus, or he's a -1.
Yeah, hey, it's not awful.
Not awful. Dude can still play, but God, there was a. I'm trying to think of some randos that played for that team. Yeah, Oscar Sundquist, Rowney, Cullen. That was the fourth line, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Um. Oh, Tom Sestito.
Oh, Tom Cecito was a member of the Penguins
Yeah,
then.
his name's on the cup.
Is it really?
Yeah, it is. He played
He
in a
must have.
Stanley
He
Cup
must
final
have played.
game.
No, that or he played 40 games during the regular season.
He did not play 40 games in the regular
No,
season.
he
He
had to.
actually played. He played in the Stanley Cup final,
What year was that?
2016, I believe.
Oh,
Or maybe it was
Eric Fair was on that team. Ian
Eric
Cole
Fair
was
was
on that.
on that. That's right.
Eric Fair scored a massive goal in Game 4 of that San Jose series to kind of put that game on ice. Massive goal in that series. I love talking about the Cup teams. 2009 is when you can really get some wild stuff going on. Ruslan Fedotenko, Peter Sikora, Matthew Guerin was the backup goalie in 2009.
Yeah, I haven't heard that name in forever.
Goligoski was young, but he was on the team. Oh man, there's some. I'd have to go back and look. Philippe Boucher was on that team. Some great names out there. Miroslav Shadan was there.
Miroslav Satan.
Yeah, great. I love going back and doing like let's remember some guys hockey edition.
Was Rupper on 2009?
No, he came right after that. No, Rupp did not win a cup in Pittsburgh.
Man, there were some. I was gonna. Who else was? Who was the little? There was a little dude that played for the Penguins in 2009. Let me look up here. Penguins
Little dude.
roster.
How little are we talking?
He looked little. I don't. He might not. I always thought like Connor Sheary was little or like Brandon Tanev was little. Then I saw him live and I was like, those guys aren't little.
Well, I mean, little in compared to some other players, they are, yes, but not like, yeah, they're still. I mean, the professional athletes are generally big people.
Remember Hal Gill?
Oh, Hal Gill's a good one. Hal Gill. What was his nickname? USS Hal Gill. He was
Skillsy.
called.
Was it
Who?
Skillsy?
No, they called him. There was like a meme around Pittsburgh. He was called the USS Hal Gill just because he was so big.
Was it Connor James who I'm thinking of?
Oh,
Yeah, he was
man.
a right shot, 5'10". I think that's him. Right wing. I think that's who I was
He
thinking
didn't play
of.
much if he played at
He
all.
didn't, but I remember
Okay.
him for some reason. God, Miroslav Shatan was a hell of a hockey player. Mark Eaton.
Oh, what a player. Mark Eaton's one of my favorite, just like random Penguins of all time because he had like his career, he has like maybe 14 goals and he scored like 4 in that 09 Cup run or something like that. What a player. Love Mark Eaton.
He was they talk about him a bunch in a Penguins DVD that I have. Seemed like a great guy. Tyler Kennedy, when he moved on, did he play very much after the Penguins? I think I remember him playing in Minnesota.
He may have. San Jose and the Islanders are who I most remember him with, but he had a chunk of years after leaving the Penguins too.
I think he lives in Pittsburgh still.
Yeah, he's back in Pittsburgh, I believe.
Doing hockey camps, drinking beer.
Probably.
Anyways, that's fun. I could talk about that for hours. Oh, and Tom Cicito didn't play in the Stanley Cup final. I think he played in the postseason though.
Oh, okay.
I'd love to get him on to talk to him and interview him, but then I saw that I think he got canceled for some comments. So let's move on.
Yeah. All right. Last but not least, here we talked about it a little bit earlier, but Andreas Castle returned to the mailbag, and he just wants our thoughts on the Line Pare incident from the weekend.
Oof. Horrible play. These are my thoughts on it. I think that they need to shorten the amount of preseason games that they play.
Yeah,
obviously,
definitely.
I think everyone's on board with that. I think that maybe, I don't know how you'd go about this, but this is a hit when you're putting your star players or your let's call them veterans, but you're putting your veterans or your mainstays in the lineup, because you have to have, I believe, like, is it 6 or like 8 veterans on the ice for preseason games as a rule?
I don't know exactly what all the rules are.
It's something like that. You have to have at least 8 vets or something on the ice in a preseason game, or like 6 vets or something like that. Early on, when you're mixing these vets in with people that are going to be in the first round of cuts probably, and they're playing reckless, they're trying to get a coach's attention. They're trying to prove that they've got, grit, or they'll fight, or they'll make a big hit to try or make a big play. I don't know. You get a lot of these guys that are not NHL players, and this is their time to shine, and you're mixing them in with veterans who are just trying to grease the wheels a bit before the season start. It's a bad mix. It's like a beer league hockey game. A lot of injuries. It's a bad mix of players, because you got dudes that'll run through a wall and they might never see an NHL. They're desperate, and then you're mixing them with dudes that are just kind of trying to take a chill skate, a little loop-de-loop skate around out there. Get the hands going, get the wheels going. It makes for a bad mix of players, like I said, and they need to figure out something where you don't have to have that many vets on the ice or something like that, or there's players that can be exceptions, less preseason games, because the amount of injuries we're seeing right now this season specifically. I mean, we talked about it earlier, like Drew Doughty going down. You lose your number one defenseman in a meaningless preseason game going into the boards with a former Penguin, Tanner Pearson, and him on a board battle. The Line A one is the one that is what I'm talking about. That Perry or Pear, whatever whatever that clown's name is, going to make that hit. It's not an NHL move. It's not an NHL play, because he's not an NHL player. And Line A's, he's trying to be a one-man breakout and carry the puck in, and knee on knee. It's an ugly hit. It's reckless. It's dumb. Why are you being such a tryhard in a preseason game? It bugs the hell out of me. Arbor Jacki fed him his lunch afterwards and got fined the maximum allowable under the CBA for jumping him. Whatever, take the fine. I'm sure that Marty St. Louis will put that money right back in his pockets after the game, because that needed to happen. I think, like, that was just stupid. But I guess good for Perry in the sense that he's going to forever be remembered as the dude who probably, Line A's knee was going a different direction. He probably ripped some ligaments. Who knows if he'll even play this season. It's super sad. I was expecting him to have a bounce back year. I was interested to see how he did up there in Montreal. So those are kind of my rambling and thoughts on it. Where are you at with it, Robbie?
Well, I do know that they said he left the game on Saturday night on crutches and in a brace, so was not looking good. Sometimes those knee-on-knees can be a momentary pain, and then it subsides once you get a closer look, some swelling, maybe a bone bruise. But this definitely appears to be a significant injury. After everything he's gone through this offseason, between being traded, losing one of his best friends, and looking to kind of get a fresh start in Montreal. I know the Canadian fans are really looking forward to having him, but unfortunately, his debut is going to have to wait. I certainly hope he can come back this year, because I think Montreal could definitely, with the right bodies, could be a pesky team, a frisky team. And that rivalry with Boston and Toronto is much better when Montreal is good. It just adds a little more fuel to that fire. So hopefully he can get back. Like you said, very unfortunate and very it's not fair. I mean, a guy like Pere or Pare, whatever his name is, out there trying to make a name for himself in the worst way possible, and it's just highly unfortunate. He did get his skull caved in, but hoping that he can Patrick Laine can heal up and get back this year because I'd like to see what he can do up there in Quebec.
Yeah, I think we're all kind of rooting for him. Like he seemed like he was going to be like the next Ovechkin or something at one point, and then it's just been a slow drop off since that one season. And it was like him and Matthews, right? And both in Canadian markets, it was exciting times. But I was hoping I was hoping to see him play this season and to see him go through that. It's just like, I don't know. It's a bummer, and it just makes you hate that Perry kid or whatever. Like, he's probably not the worst dude. I'm assuming, you want to think the best of him, but he's probably, I mean, that changed his life for sure. He's getting all the bad press right now, so it's just a shitty incident. So I think that the league needs to figure something out. I think the CBA gets rewritten in like 2 years, or they have a chance to rewrite the CBA in a couple years. I would assume the way that players take care of themselves now, they're going to be like, we don't need this many preseason games.
I mean, the Penguins play 5 and 7 days this week. I know, even if that one went canceled on Saturday night, it's not like it was from like 2 weeks ago. I mean, it's still an absurd amount of games to play in such a small stretch when these games are legitimately the most meaningless games you could possibly play.
Just knock on wood that the Penguins stay healthy. I would be throwing out. I put bubble wrap Sid and Gino and Letang, and not Graves.
Yeah. I mean, you have a 50-ish guys left in camp. Crosby get one more. I think tonight's game against Detroit is the same roster that they were going to ice the other night. So I don't believe tonight has anybody like Malkin or Crosby out there. So we should be good tonight. Fingers crossed. Knock on wood.
I see something? Lizotte took a puck to the face.
Oh boy, it wouldn't surprise me with the Penguins.
I think I did see something. I was wondering if you saw that. Blake Lizotte. Sullivan has a quote on him. Suffers scary facial injury.
Oh, great.
So yeah, another injury in a preseason game. According to the Penguins, Lizotte suffered an upper body injury and would not return to the game. Head coach Mike Sullivan gave an update on his status. He got hit in the face with a puck. Scary thing. He never saw it coming. That was a tough one. I don't think the guys were used to the bench being that far down into the zone. That's a little bit different in this rink. So that sucks. Blake Lizotte. Hopefully it's nothing, maybe you have to throw the bubble on.
Yeah. Yep.
The fishbowl on or something, but hopefully it's nothing too bad.
Yeah, because Lizotte was a guy that I think everybody was looking forward to when they announced that signing in the preseason. So fingers crossed that he's back and healthy in no time.
Oh yeah, my buddy who's a Kings fan was pissed at Blakey for getting rid of that guy. He said we're gonna, as a Pens fan, love him.
I don't know how much longer Blake has in
Rob Blake.
Who's Jeff Blake? I don't even know.
I don't know, but Rob Blake, that guy's seat has been hot for years, and I don't see how it's getting any cooler out there.
I mean, at some point, it all has to come together for LA. I mean, they have the pieces. They just got to find a way to kind of get it. Hopefully, Quentin Byfield can take that leap. Again, not a massive. I really don't. The Kings are whatever to me. I believe that hockey's better when all the California teams are good. Because those rivalries can really crank up. But the Kings, to me, have always been one of the more boring teams to watch, just because the style of play that they utilize. So, I mean, whatever. I mean, I'm just kind of nitpicking now, and I hate staying up to watch those games because it's like it's like impossible.
No, the Kings were like my least favorite out of the California teams. Those old California teams, the Anaheim Ducks and the Sharks were sick.
Yeah,
Joe Thornton, Pavelski, Marlowe. I saw a stat about Marlowe. Dude, Marlowe scored. No one fact checked me on this. Someone said it. He scored 37 goals when he played for the Toronto Maple Leafs that one season.
Yeah, he had like an outlier year. Like it was his last just push with what he had left.
Insanity. That's a ton of goals for an old guy like him. But yeah, Joe Thornton, those are sick. I loved the Ducks, man. I loved that, like, Getzlaff, Perry.
Yeah.
A lot of people talk about random players from the Cup years. He never won a Cup, but there's a player on the. Do you remember Francois Beauchemin?
Yeah. Yep.
I thought he was awesome. Cam Fowler. They had Brandon Montour even back then. Stanley Cup winners in Seattle now. Anderson, Gibson. Back in the day, they had Pronger, Niedermeyer. The Ducks were awesome.
Yeah, I was like when Cam Fowler was just kind of coming up and breaking into the league. He was like a guy I always went after in fantasy hockey.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was just one of those, like, you could always get him like semi, mid round, late round, depending on who you're drafting with. The fun thing about fantasy hockey, was that I was more into it than a lot of my friends were. So like I knew a lot of these like under the radar guys that I could snag up late. Like if I joined a league now, I'd be writing down like Wyatt Johnson and Logan Stankoven to like snatch these guys before they got.
I've never played fantasy hockey. I kind of want to try it out.
It's best if you get someone that commissioner that's really into it and the point system's done right, because the generic point system is very bland and boring. So like you get points for shots on goal and stuff like if you get really into it, it's just something that needs a lot of time to set up.
Yeah, that's what I think has deterred me from doing it. It's not fun to do it by yourself.
Yeah.
Like you can join like random things online or whatever, but
yeah.
Some of our listeners, let us know if you play fantasy hockey. Maybe we could get a group going if there's enough of you.
Yeah, I mean, if we could maybe turn something around here quick before the season starts, I'd be down for it. So yeah, let us know.
That'd be fun. Let's try.
Yeah, let us know in the comments and message us, message Snail, message me, message the Twitter account, and we'll get it going.
Well, Robbie, I think that wraps up the mailbag. The Seahawks kick off in just under 2 hours. Let's quickly touch on, how did you feel about the Steelers' loss?
You can't start like that. I like the effort and the comeback. I like what I see from Justin Fields. You just can't start slow like that. The defense wasn't good enough. You can't be losing to Joe Flacco in 2024.
Dude, Joe Flacco was pulled out of, wasn't why is he still playing?
I mean, you gotta love it. That's all I can say, really. You gotta love it. And unfortunately, unfortunately that was the situation yesterday. But it was coming at some point. You know, it's going undefeated's definitely not really possible. It's very hard. So it was coming at some point, but I like to fight back. It's just too many mental errors, but luckily that's stuff that can be rectified and move on from there. I'm not crushed.
You're not crushed. Okay.
No, I'm not crushed. We'll move on, get back at it next week, and get back in the dub column.
What's your thoughts on tonight for the old Seahawks? Do you think that they pull a win out of their ass against the Lions? Do you think they're a real deal, or do you see them falling?
Tonight's going to be a hard test. Detroit is a good football team. Detroit's a team that I enjoy watching. It's going to be a lot on Geno Smith tonight. I think I'm interested in Mike McDonald's defense against a really good offense. So if Geno can keep them in the game and not make a crucial mistake, I think they could pull it out. But I think it's going to be a close game. Tough on the road, but hey, these are the kind of games you got to win if you want to prove yourself to be a contender.
That's right. That is correct. I'm optimistic. I think that they pull it. I think they pull a dub out of their ass, and can't wait to hear what the media says about them after that one.
Yeah. Yep. All right, everyone. That is our episode for this Monday, September 30th. We'll be back on Thursday with more questions, more hockey talk, especially with a couple games. There'll be a couple more games to talk about. Maybe some roster moves and stuff. So until then, Snell, you got anything to wrap us up real quick?
Nope.
All right. Snell says no. I'll say see you guys later this week.